Some seasons invite us to move, others invite us to pay attention. In a world that rewards speed, certainty, and constant motion, slowing down can feel uncomfortable, sometimes even unnecessary. But what happens when we stop long enough to notice what's changing? What happens when the things that once motivated us no longer fit? When closed doors begin to look different? When the way we've always carried ourselves no longer serves the season we're entering? In this episode of Executive Lessons in Love, I sit down with trauma therapist, author, and mental wellness advocate Jasmine Joy Johnson for a conversation about growth, identity, self trust, and the shifts that often happen quietly before they happen publicly. I'm Arnitris L. Strong, and this is The Power of the Pause, Jasmine Joy Johnson on discernment, self trust, and emotional awareness.
And watch your relationship finally grow. You've been the expert all along, just needed someone to show you where you belong. Executive lessons, lessons in love.
Welcome back to another episode of Executive Lessons in Love. I am joined today by the lovely Miss Jasmine Joy. Jasmine, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
There comes a moment when surviving is no longer enough. A moment when the roles you've carried, the expectations and we've met no longer answer the deeper questions you're asking.
I'm excited to jump into this conversation. In your work as a trauma therapist and mental wellness advocate, people often come to you during moments when they're navigating grief, identity shifts, or major life decisions. When someone is in that kind of vulnerable place, how do you hold the responsibility of knowing your words and perspective may shape how they understand their situation?
One, I don't take it lightly. I understand that in these vulnerable times, this is a very sensitive time and that whatever I say is going to hold weight. And so I'm very conscious of that. I'm not quick. That's one of the first things is that I'm not. There's a saying that says that you want to be slow to speak, but quick to hear. And I'm always listening to understand instead of listening to respond, right? And then taking all things into consideration because there's multifacets to a person, right? Everybody exhibits emotional distress in different types of ways. And being able to understand certain meanings that they have connected to whether it's faith, their family systems, all of those things account to how they're responding and making sure I'm looking at the person in a holistic way because one word would be intersectionality. Maybe they're a mother and they feel like they got to hold it together for their children. So there's different facets of that person that have to be considered. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about the work that I do. It's very personalized to that person. You can take a theory if you want to, but that theory don't know this person. They don't know the walk of life that they've had to walk in. I look at the person from a holistic lens, taking in all accounts of attributes that contribute to them ultimately to effectively help them in those vulnerable states.
What part of culture do you think defines your approach? Because I know that we're all on our healing journey. Most of us, Black women, are seeking therapy. And a common theme that I hear is that we want to talk to a Black woman. Do you see that trend as well in your work? And what part does culture play in therapy? Because there are things that we face as Black women specifically that I just don't think that even the Black men sometimes would be able to relate to, or even definitely not white women or men. How do you think that defines the work that you do?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. You said it's the first thing you said is the thing that I see a lot. People come to me not just because I'm a Black woman, but also because I'm a woman of faith. Need somebody to understand that. When we define culture, a lot of people think of it as ethnicity or nationality, but it even goes beyond that.
Yes,
Culture
deeper
can be
than
your
that.
family systems, growing up in a two-parent home, growing up in a single-parent home, that shapes a lot of your belief systems. Not only that, your work environment. If I'm a CEO versus a person that may just be an employee, our mindsets are different. They're not going to be able to understand certain sacrifices, certain things of why I didn't say this, why I didn't move this way, why you got your hair that way. All these things come to play. You're an entrepreneur. All these things come to play. That is a part of culture. And I don't know if everybody looks at it that way, but we have to. because they define how we move, how we interpret, and how we express ourselves. And all those things have to be taken into account. Yes, you need somebody that can understand. They need to have a level of cultural humility and cultural responsiveness, right? That you can go beyond your own perspective. I have to go even beyond my own personal opinions, my own personal perspectives, but I got to be able to understand. That's why I say, you tell me, what do these things mean to you? You're understanding that, I'm listening to understand so that I can help to make meaning and not misdiagnose or misrepresent you, right? Because I may be missing the mark every time because I have this assumption, right? It's just like everybody thinks that black cats are evil, right? But in certain cultures, that may not necessarily be the case. We just have to have an understanding of culture beyond ethnicity,
Beyond
nationality.
ethnicity. And I think that especially you're seeking therapy, sometimes it's out because something traumatic has happened, or maybe sometimes you're just trying to make meaning or move and elevate in your life and you're having to unpack some things. But I think that removing that barrier, because no matter where you are in life as Black women, there are some shared experiences that we
Yes.
have, and then you're able to actually look at it that way. I remember having to my manager about taking some time off because a cousin died, and she was like, well, let's not cover it under bereavement. But first of all, I don't care about the pay. I'm going to go home and support my family.
Right.
But I had to make her understand. I said cousin, but in our culture, cousins are like
Everybody
brothers and
cousins.
sisters. Like this, you
Yeah.
and your cousins, but
You
it's
grew
like
up
you were
together.
raised, you
Sister
grew up
cousin.
together. You at grandma's house, all of y'all sleeping in the bed together, or y'all on the pallet, but it's different. And I just felt like I shouldn't have to explain that. The first thing, when I come to you and I tell you that I have a death in my family, I need to take some time away, the first thought shouldn't be pay. It should be, offer my condolences, and if there's anything that I can do to support you during this time, then let me know. But it made me think about that, how across different cultures it's different. And
The value
that
system is not aligned. In the
is
African American
definitely not,
culture,
because we're
them are,
community focused
yes, very,
always. And even as far as I might call, we have play cousins. I don't know if other ethnicities have play cousins. I might call somebody my cousin, may not even really be related to me, but we were raised that way, and
yeah.
you can't tell them that they're not your cousin, and nobody else can tell me that they're not my cousin, because that's how we were raised. And I think that it's a beautiful thing to see many of us embracing therapy, because for a long time there was a stigma. There's something wrong with you. Therapy is not necessarily some sort of mental issue that you have going on. You just need to hear from someone that's not as close to the situation, that can offer a different perspective. I definitely love the work that you were doing. I was excited to have this conversation with you.
It's needed, and there's still stigmas that still have
Yeah.
to continue to break down, but it's one step at a time.
Right. Also, you mentioned in your intake form that when major opportunities or decisions arrive, you've learned to slow down. I guess that reflects what you said about speaking with your clients. You're slow to speak. You create space for clarity and prayer instead of reacting quickly. What helped you develop that discipline of pausing long enough to discern whether something is truly aligned before moving forward?
What if the relationship lesson you're still carrying didn't have to cost you another 6 months? Join me for Love Elevated Summer School. 3 evenings, 1 companion journal, relationship education for women tired of learning relationship the hard way.
Trial and error. I've come to realize I begin to get overwhelmed when too many things are coming. My anxiety is going, my blood is like, my body is responding to the anxiety, and I can't think. I'm all over the place. I'm snapping on here and there, my kids everywhere. And I'm like, girl, you got to get it together, which is an indicator. I'm listening to my body. You got to slow down, take a pause. It's okay. And I had to talk to myself. It's okay to take a pause. See, before, my mind would say, if you take a pause, everything gonna go to kaput. It's about to all crumble down. And then what you gonna do? Then you're gonna then you're gonna be more tired because you got to do this. That's an imagination. Where did that come from? Why am I thinking that way? I don't have any evidence that even proves that. I always say, who told you that? Where'd that come from? Do I got evidence to back that up? If I ain't got evidence to back it up, it's gotta get up out of here. I have to slow down because I'm always moving. I'm always in the go. But there's a time that you gotta rest, or I'm gonna be going on fumes. I cannot pour from emptiness, right? From our necessary place,
Our
right? Instead of our
necessary.
access, right? He says, "My cup runneth over." You supposed to be giving from the overflow. Okay.
Definitely not okay. There's a lot of unlearning around that we're having to do. I know for me personally, I'm having to learn to pause when something comes up. Maybe there's a situation with a friend or family member, and learning to pause before I just jump in and start to trying to resolve something because, like you said, you don't have anything left for yourself. And I had to forgive myself for the times where I gave to the point of exhaustion. And then I'm learning to give myself grace now for the times where I just simply say no, or I'm not able to do that for you right now. Definitely been in unlearning because I think for most of us, we probably watched our mothers and grandmothers and aunts do the same things. But it's a beautiful thing when you're able to put yourself first. And like you said, you don't want to be running on fumes because you've given everybody what they needed and now you don't have what you need and now you don't have anything left to give to the people who are most important. You're giving away much out in the world. But that's a beautiful thing, learning that skill to be able to just pause for a second and say, wait a minute, how much of myself can I devote to this situation? And then just give that and let the people know, hey, this is what I can do. This is what I cannot do. And I think one of the things that I've really learned recently over the last few years is that learning to ask, how can I support you when a situation comes up and they come to me with it? Because many times we want to support people the way that we would want to be supported in that situation. That's not always the way that they want to be supported. And my friends have now learned to ask me, how can I support you? Because most times I just want to vent.
That's it.
I just need you to listen. I just need you to sit here and be with me in this moment. But yes, I think that if we implement that pause and then also ask you, how can I support you? Because it may not be that they need the support in the way that you want it to operate.
Sometimes we make that assumption and we assume that it's gonna be way more than what we can, and we be like, "Nah, I just girl, all I need you to do is just listen." Oh, well, that's it. I can do that, right? That's okay. You need a meal, you need to go eat, you need to laugh. Well, let's go do it. And you probably need it yourself sometimes, most of the most.
I definitely a good old Kiki ain't never hurt nobody. You reflected on a time earlier in your career when unexpected shifts or closed doors felt more personal, almost like setbacks. At what point did those transitions begin to feel less like failure and more like redirection in your professional journey?
When I kept trying to push the door,
Didn't want to open it.
right? I would even let's just take example of me stepping out into private practice. When I did mine, it don't even make logical sense when I tell you this. But I always knew that this was something that I wanted to do. It's always been a passion, but it was the timing. See, when the Lord gives you a certain thing, you can't tell him because you're gonna say it needs to look like this. When I started my private practice was during COVID and in the middle of ugly divorce. And I'm like, oh, I know you lying. What does this look like? And stepped away from making six figures, was working hard. And God, I need you to work smarter, harder.
Yeah.
That's what I need you to do, right? But it didn't make sense because I have 5 kids and I'm like, wait, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I took that leap. But here's the thing, before I took that leap, there was a carrot that was dangled in front of me, something that I thought I wanted, but it would have kept me capped. And so I was like, do you want it? It was a regional director position and it was something that I wanted 2 years ago. Asked me 2 years ago, that would have been like, this is what I want to do. But
Absolutely.
my taste and my palate had shifted. I was beyond that. I don't want no more limitation. Oh, I know I can do it. I don't need that to make me feel like I'm somebody anymore. Back in the day, it was you get this esteemed position, you feel like you're making it or you're doing this and that. But during
Yeah.
that 2 years, I began to learn more about myself. I understood who I was, what I was possessing, and I didn't need those titles to validate what I could do because who I am is not, I bring that to anything that I do, right? But a lot of times we get caught up in what I do is who I am. That's where I begin to, that unlearning begin to happen. The things that used to appease me, they didn't anymore. And so I took that leap. And when I tell you it was scary, but I did it anyway, sometimes people be like, well, what do I do? You can do it scared. And you don't gotta. I did not know what the next move, but my obedience in that first move opened up the doors for the next. Do you know in 3 months I was already at the place that I was? It just took 3 months to be there. And I was like,
Hallelujah.
my,
Wow.
why they do it? Did I have to sacrifice a little bit? Girl, you can't go get your lashes done. You can't go get your nails done. But I wasn't hurt. We
Right.
wasn't hungry, you understand? And sometimes people don't wanna give a little bit. If you release to something, you gotta know that in due time, what is it worth to you, right? What's most important to you? And
Absolutely.
it set me up for me to
I
transition.
think it's beautiful, and that's a trend in every conversation that I've had. There was a moment in time where the women had to make a move that didn't make sense to them, definitely didn't make sense to people looking around, but that was the moment where they could look back and say, "Everything changed when I did that." When I hear you talking about you making that first step and you're not knowing what was the next step, it makes me remember that was it Michael Jackson video? Was it Billie Jean where he stepped? It didn't light up until he actually stepped on the step and then the next. And that's how this faith walk is. You don't know all of the steps, but you have just take that first step, trusting that everything is going to work out the way it is supposed to be. And now I know that you're glad that you actually went ahead and took that step. And it's amazing how our palates change. I love how you described it, how your palate changed. Some of the things that 2 years ago an offering will come up, oh my God, I was jump on that and now it's not so much. It's lovely how we mature in that way and what we want and desire for our lives change.
Mhm.
I was catching up with an old friend last night, actually, and we were talking about how our lives look so much different than the way that we thought they would. This is my friend from high school.
Yeah,
And our lives looks different than the way that we thought it would, but still same goals. We were able to achieve them not in the way that we thought we would, but it's still all coming together. Life is such a beautiful thing when you really take the time to look at the whole picture. Sometimes we can get stuck in a
yeah.
moment. You said that you were going through a divorce and pivoting into a new chapter in your career, and that was scary, but when we step back and look at the whole picture, and it really trust that God knows the whole picture anyway. We're looking at a corner, but He knows all of this is going to be worth it in the end. And then that nothing about our journey is wasted. He uses
Mhm.
every part of it. And that is, I was talking to another friend just talking about some past relationships, and I'm able to look back on them now and not see that person as a villain, to see them as a necessary part of
You
my
say, "Thank you.
story.
Thank you. Thank you for closing the door.
I'm
Thank
not,
you
you know
for
what?
thank you
For
for
a
leaving."
long time that I was held shackled to that. They did this to me. But in that moment, what did I get out of it? What are the lessons that I'm able to teach other people? What are the signs that I can see earlier now? And free being able to look at it that way. And I think freeing for you and then for them as well.
I agree. I always say it was good that I was afflicted, because I could see things different. It's like my eyes opened up. Every affliction, every opposition, it's like an enlightening moment for me to see
Right.
an opportunity for me to see myself and how I
Mhm.
can maneuver and how I can grow. It's an opportunity for growth, is what I say.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears for a moment, not away from insight, but into something lighter
Okay.
that still reveals how you think in real time.
Um,
Since your work focuses much on emotional awareness, I'm curious how quickly you identify patterns in human behavior. We're going to play a quick game called
okay.
Pattern or Protection. I'm going to
Okay.
give you some examples of some scenarios, and I want you to tell me if this is a pattern or if it's the person protecting themselves. Your job is simply to decide whether it sounds more like a pattern, something someone repeatedly does that keeps creating the same outcomes in their life, or protection, something someone developed as a way to guard themselves from being hurt again. So you don't have to explain anything, just your first instinct. Or if you want to explain deeper, then we can definitely do that. You ready?
Okay. All right.
Some behaviors help us stay safe. Some behaviors simply keep repeating. The question is, which one are you looking at? Let's play pattern or protection.
Someone avoids difficult conversation until the tension becomes impossible to ignore.
Pattern and protection.
You want to explain or no?
Yes, initially it started as a protection. And a lot of times this is what happens. It's a traumatic response. We initially, our brain detects harm, threat, danger, and it's goes into survival mode. It's going to look for a way to protect itself. And because it worked that one time, it's going to happen again and again. Every time I feel these emotions, anytime I perceive a harm, I'm going to do this thing. every time.
Someone pulls away the moment they feel misunderstood.
Protection.
Someone constantly tries to fix other people's problems.
Pattern.
Someone assumes people will eventually leave.
Pattern.
Someone struggles
It
to
can
be
develop into a protection, though. It depends on what that looks at. I say that's an avoidant attachment, where the person is
okay.
constantly, let me leave you before you leave me. That's what that looks like.
Someone struggles to believe compliments or praise.
Ooh, pattern.
Someone gives people repeated chances even after disappointment.
Protection and pattern.
Someone chooses independence instead of asking for help.
Protection.
Someone shuts down emotionally during conflict.
Protection.
Someone apologizes quickly even when they aren't at fault.
And protection.
Someone avoids expressing their needs to keep the peace.
Protection.
What stands out to me is how quickly your clarity shows up when you're recognizing those behaviors. You don't even have to think about it. You are on the spot. I love that. Listening to how quickly you identify those patterns is clear how deeply you study emotional behavior. How has that understanding of human patterns influenced the way you move through life personally?
Have to take into account that there's more to that person than that current circumstance. I don't know if they had a bad day. I don't know what I could have been triggering. There could be a level of, I tell people all the time, just because people throw stuff at you don't mean you got to catch it. Sometimes a lot of times it's projection, and people believe somebody else's projection about themselves, and then we take it on as identity, which is
Yeah.
very dangerous.
Absolutely. I think that's another part of unlearning for a lot of us because much of what my parents called discipline, it wasn't much there was a shame. If you did something that made you a bad person, not like you had a bad day or you had a bad moment or you made a bad decision, you were bad. And now I see that a lot, especially interacting online. I have to pause, like you said, and think about what could possibly be really going on here for this person to be acting this way, or why are they drawing these conclusions that make absolutely no sense and spewing this online. And it's a sum total of all of the things that we have experienced in our lives, the people that we hang around. I always tell my children that it's important for you to be around people who don't think the way that you do,
Yes.
who have had different experiences than you do,
Yeah.
because you're challenged to think about things differently. When you're always around people that only think the way that you do, they only do the things that you do, then you'll never really have that chance to grow. And it's really interesting. I love reality dating shows, just
Okay.
all of them.
Well, I can only imagine.
And Is Blind is a very popular, I don't know if you've heard of it, dating show on Netflix. And I was having a conversation about one of the fan favorites, a racial couple, a black guy who's a professor and this white woman, one of the only two couples that ended up getting married this
wow.
season. And everybody just loves it. He's a tall, dark, and handsome guy. He's well spoken. He seems to be all put together. And one of the things that stood out for me was that he always had the right answers. He always said the right things. In my experience, anyone, not just a man, anyone always says the right things. They're hiding something nefarious. And I said that I was like, I think they're a cute couple, but there's something about him that doesn't quite sit well with me because everything he says feels like it's carefully curated, saying all the right things. And a guy responded and said, I can tell that you've never been loved correctly because when I met my wife, I said all the right things and we've been together for 20 years. And I'm like, wow, that's quite an assumption for someone to make. And I said, you know what? I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. I do enough teaching in my content. I'm not going to do teaching in the comments, but it's really interesting the way that people, like you said, project, because maybe he felt something because he felt like when he met his wife, and maybe even if we talked to his wife, she wouldn't even agree that he said all the right things. He thought he was saying all the right things. But it's really interesting how people can project sometimes. And I always say, do more reflecting and less projecting, especially when you come across some information that feels uncomfortable. But that moment of being uncomfortable long enough to know why it made you. Is it because there's a little bit of truth in that? Is it because it reminds you of some past incident? And maybe if you just take that moment to think about it, then your response won't be a dagger because you felt like you were attacked and you want to attack back. But
I
yeah,
think we're in a culture, though, that people don't like to be uncomfortable, one. And then the other thing is that we don't like to slow down. Everything is fast paced. I want it now.
microwave,
Slowing down, what they say, the best food is those that's been
so cooked. Absolutely.
right? I think the same thing when it even comes relationships, conversations, like those that have intention. There's a level of intentionality that is taken when you slow down. Live when you're impulsive. When you just go right there, it's much regret. Then you got to take back.
Mhm.
You can't take once the words been come out. You
Once
can't take
it
it back.
well, I had a conversation with someone recently that said some things in the heat of the moment, and I was like, "Wow, that's how you feel? I have to love you from a distance." And in the moment, I knew that they didn't really mean it, but
Yeah,
it was just the fact that I'm hurt by the fact that you even thought it.
yeah.
I'm hurt by the fact that you knew that if you said it was gonna hurt me, you said it anyway. That pause is really important. I think I wish that more people did that. I really do. There comes a time in many people's lives when the mindset that carried them through one season can't carry them into the next. As you've grown in your work and leadership, what is one mindset you've had to outgrow?
That independent woman. I had to take the S off my chest.
Mhm.
Was too weighty. Independence leads to isolation, where I feel
Yeah.
like I gotta hold it all together. I gotta do it by myself. Who told me that? I can only go as far as I can go. But when I involve community, when I involve, there's an interdependence. Even when it comes to God, my relationship with God is interdependent. He all up in it. He got to be all up.
Yeah.
Right. I can't stand by myself. One person can't get a person out of the pit. How do I know if I'm in a dark pit, how am I gonna get myself out? Right. That isolation. I need somebody else that can see another perspective, see my blind spots. If I'm independent and out here by myself and I feeling like the whole world's against me, then who is for me? That's a lonely world. But a lot of
Lonely.
times our mind will tell us that. And it goes
Mhm.
back, I got to check that. What experiences, and does that one experience deem all experiences?
Right.
How am I going to keep letting my past tell my future what it is?
Right. Yeah, I know. We've talked about unlearning a lot, but one of the things that I've had to unlearn in my personal relationships is being that strong friend because there were moments when I had a human moment when I reacted. Probably I wasn't my best moment and I reacted in a way that was very human. It's like the people didn't know how to take it. Oh my God. And I had to think about it when it became a pattern. I had to think of what did I contribute to this? Because I very aware of my emotions and I think I do a good job of managing them. But there are times when we're very human. And I had to say, wait a minute, I don't want relationships that can't handle the weight of my entire human emotion. The relationship is not going to be the same because, oh my God, Anitra is at a moment and she went off. But that is important to not only pause, but to also not wear that S on our chest. Yeah. Jasmine, this has been a wonderful conversation. I think that we could definitely go on for another hour, but I want you to, as we wrap up, I want you to tell the people a little bit more about you, what you're working on, how they can contact you, how they can follow you, if they need therapy, if they're in your area, or if you do virtual, how they can get in touch with
Yes. You can find me on all platforms at the Jasmine Joy. And I go live every Monday at 12 Central Time, and I talk about different things of how we can be renewed in our mind. Everything that I do is dealing with mindset work, which is our mind, our will, our intellect, and our desires, right? And one of the books that is called Renewed Me. The E stands for mind, the E stands for our emotions, being renewed in our mind and our emotions. As a trauma therapist and as well as a minister of the gospel, I've infused both of those. And I give the transparency of my own life experiences, but I created this tool to help people really walk through that healing journey. Maybe somebody don't want to sit on somebody's couch and they're not quite ready to go there. This is for the person that's suffering in silence. This is for the person that has that S on their chest. It's time to really focus on yourself because I truly believe that God is concerned about your soul, not how gifted you are, not how anointed you are, not how talented you are. Those things are great. Those are what you do, but they're not who you are. And that little girl, that little boy, they need tending to as well. And this book is a tool. And I also have a companion workbook that goes with it. What I'm working on is some workshops that I will be hosting virtually as well as in person, and really just helping people to build that confidence, knowing who they are. Because when you know who you are, you do what you're supposed to do in a different way. You show up in your authenticity with boldness, courageousness, and that's really what it's all about, right? That's what it looks like to prosper. And it's that somebody else can see. It's not just for you. Everything that we go through, somebody else can glean, right? You just created a bridge that somebody else don't have to go through troubled water. And that's what is a bridge builder to help people when it comes to their soul, so you can continue on and experience that fullness of life and that abundance of life that you're supposed to. DM me, follow me, get the book if you really want to do that work. I host workshops if you're looking for a speaker or a facilitator to do those things. I do those things as well. Just excited. Thank you so much, Anitra,
Thank you.
for this opportunity. And I'm excited about what you're doing and the great things that's going to continue to work for you. Thank you again for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you.
Visibility doesn't happen by accident. The women making the greatest impact aren't simply doing great work. They're ensuring that great work can be seen.
One of the most powerful moments in this conversation with Jasmine Joy Johnson came when she described learning to slow down before making important decisions. In business, leaders who react to every opportunity often find themselves committed to things they never fully evaluated. The same thing happens in relationships. Most people don't struggle because they can't recognize what's in front of them. They struggle because they decide what it means too quickly. A delayed text becomes rejection. Attention becomes intention. Chemistry becomes compatibility. The ability to pause before assigning meaning is often what separates a reaction from a decision. Jasmine shared that her palate's changed. The opportunities she once wanted no longer held the same appeal. Not because they were bad opportunities, but because she had become a different woman. In leadership, growth often requires reevaluating what success looks like, and the same is true in relationships. One of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is realizing that what once attracted you no longer qualifies you. The person you would have chosen 5 years ago may not be the person you would choose today, not because your standard changed, because you changed. Toward the end of our conversation, Jasmine made a statement that I have been thinking about ever since. Independence leads to isolation. Many accomplished women have built lives that require competence, resilience, and self-sufficiency. Those qualities serve us well professionally, but relationships ask something different. Success often rewards independence. Healthy relationships require interdependence, the willingness to trust, the willingness to receive, the willingness to stop carrying everything alone. What helps us build a career is not always the same thing that helps us build connection, and recognizing the difference may be one of the most important lessons of all. Perhaps that's why this conversation resonates beyond therapy, leadership, or personal growth, because every season eventually asks the same question: who are you becoming? And does the way you're moving still support where you're trying to go?